Hi everyone, it's Martha Novak. We're trying a different system in a new room. Don't know how this is going to work out today, but we're going to do the best we can. We're always fooling with this, trying to help the system not go down. So just know we're trying. That's all I can promise you. We're doing today part 3 of creating the life you want. This is something that everybody loves, this particular topic. I get a lot of mail and calls about it. I'm delighted you all like it. So you keep in mind that you do it well when you work on yourself. It's like everything else in life. There's just not one fix. There's just not. It's an accumulation of working on yourself. It's putting the whole together. And so you keep that in mind as we do this. It's marvelous to have this marvelous formula. It's marvelous to know how it all works. And the real work comes with you applying that. Okay? So just want you to know, because I think that a lot of these manifestation programs out there are misleading. They make it sound so easy. The principle is, the application is not. It means a lifetime of work on yourself. But what a fascinating subject you've got, you see. So just keep that in mind. Everything is doable. Everything is movable. You should be able to do this beautifully, with the caveat that you better work on yourself. And that's the way I want you to approach all of life, that it is such a privilege to do so. Okay? I think if you do so, in fact, I know if you do so, you're going to find out that you're quite a piece of work, and I mean in a really good way, that you created all of these issues in your subconscious mind as a little kid. Think of what you can do now if you bring all that energy to the present time with the wisdom and true belief of what you know, that you have your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual bodies behind you all the way, and you are laser pointing that in the directions you want to go. And you know nothing will stop you except your own mind, which you are continuing to get out of the way. Now, what mind are we talking about? We're talking about the ego child's mind, right? You have two minds. The ego child's mind, the part of you that still thinks like a child, that still thinks the past is the present, which it's not. And the higher self mind, which is the love-based, powerful part of you that you're listening to this show with. That's the part that gets activated on Sunday mornings, and we're trying to activate it all through the week for you. Okay? All right, let's do prayer. Get us all on the same page. And I am very sorry I am low today. I have a pillow that I'm sitting on too. Maybe I can raise it even more and actually get up there into the land of the living. Yeah, not much help. All right. Let's go on and do our prayer, and we will start on our way. And good morning, Cat. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for being here today, for our opening our minds to the grace and goodness of God present in our lives. We open ourselves now to the divine principles that are here, that are working. We have been like a canoeist who puts our boat in the water and doesn't realize there's a current. It's been hard, paddling upstream, paddling this way and that. And now we are here to talk about the current. That's what we're doing today. Open our minds to it. Open our minds to these principles, not only to believe them, but to actually implement them and to see their work in our own lives. Nothing stops us, dear God, but us. The ego child's mind that limits us because we are afraid. And we understand that, and we have compassion for it. But there is no need for it anymore as adults. So we open ourselves now to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth, the big truth, your truth that lies in our enlightenment. We say these things, and we also say, we know nothing. We surrender that for these 90 minutes, that it is the you through us and through all things that know it all, that will speak to us directly, that we may know what to do in the highest and most loving energies of ourselves, of you, which is all the same thing. We thank you so much, dear God, and say this prayer knowing these things are so and true, and so it is. Amen. All righty. So we are starting 8:16. That's today. I promised you a really powerful exercise this week. Now, I want to go back. For those of you that are just listening to me for the first time, and I do know there are some of you out there that are listening for the first time. By the way, I am doing a radio show, but I'm also doing it on Facebook Live. So I want you all to know, those of you that are listening to me on the radio, but the people that I'm talking to are people that are writing me on Facebook Live. If you would like to be one of those people, I am delighted. You can go to my website, which is Martha Novak, NOVAK.com, and under radio shows, there should be 2 buttons, one of which will get you into this show, either on Facebook Live or Blog Talk Radio. If you missed this show or any of the other ones, you can always tune in on either one of those channels. The shows are archived on those channels or on YouTube. And I would very strongly suggest, if you have not heard the series that started 2 weeks ago, that you go back and listen. All of my work relies on various aspects of itself. We are talking about creating the life you want right now, and it rides on the information that has appeared in the last 2 weeks. Not that you won't enjoy today's show, and I'm going to kind of catch you up in just a few minutes, but I absolutely want you to go back and listen so you can really understand what I'm saying, because it's all what I say today is relative to what I have said. One of the things I've said that everybody loves to hear is the formula for creating the life you want. That's just great. But the formula for creating the life you want, and this is what I meant in the very beginning, has a lot to do with how clear you are and how much in alignment your conscious and subconscious minds are. All of us don't know ourselves very well. I've actually had people stand in my kitchen and say, I don't have any issues. Darlings, everybody has them. That is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. And if you don't know you have them, we have some work to do, because everybody has them. Everybody's working under limitations, bar none. That doesn't mean anything about the parenting you had. Could be bad, indifferent, good. It doesn't matter. You have issues. We all have issues. We have issues we don't even know we have, and there's the rub. Because we don't know we have them. And if we are unaware of these parts of ourselves that influence how well we create things and how well we come up with creative ideas and how well we are as wisdom keepers and as contributors to society, we got a problem. Because we've got to straighten ourselves out even if we don't know that. That's a conscious journey, isn't it? Did you think it's interesting that it's called consciousness studies? It's about being more conscious today than you were yesterday and more conscious tomorrow than you are today. You see? Now there's a triad that gets us there. It is awareness to consciousness to enlightenment. Enlightenment being the advanced stages of consciousness. All right? And this is a program dedicated to all of those, what do I want to say, growths evolvements. Those are highfalutin words. I prefer saying, this is your path if you're listening to this show. So don't you stray from it. Get on it. Let's go. Okay. Now let's start with the formula that everybody wanted. Now, everybody did have for the last 2 weeks. The formula to create anything you want is simple. Doing it is hard. The formula is desire what you desire. If you are saying, I don't know what I want, then go back and listen to the first show, because I explained that you do, and you'll see that you do. The show 2 weeks ago. I don't have the dates for that, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And then, so it's desire plus, this is a formula, knowingness that lives in expectancy. And we said that knowingness that lives in expectancy is the really hard part, because if you don't see it in the physical substance, right? The ego child's mind comes galumping up and wants to say, see, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? And it won't. You've just created it not working. Congratulations. Okay, so we've got to work on the knowingness. Knowingness is about consciousness. Knowingness is about knowing God as you, knowing how the energy works, knowing, not suspecting, not wanting to believe, not wanting to be a wannabe to believe, but actually knowing. Takes some doing. Okay, that lives in expectancy means, well, if you are absolutely going to get it and you know that, then everything is marvelous, isn't it? You know, the next phone call, the letter in the mailbox, everything's exciting. That's knowingness that lives in expectancy. Plus, any action you are propelled to take from the inside or from the outside to follow up on equals the manifestation of your desires every time, bar none. Now today, what I want to start doing is not only finish up with giving you exercises that will really help your mindset and really help you in the first few months of this, even years of this. One of the things I want to say to you is I'm giving you props. You know, you keep in mind I was an old acting coach. I hate the word old. Think of it as O-L apostrophe. Anyway, I was an acting coach. And when I had an actor who could not get there emotionally, we would often give them a prop. It's an old methodology from method acting. I can give you an example of that. If you'll think of, what was the name of the movie? East of Eden with James Dean. Do you remember that old film? James Dean studied, I believe, method acting. There's a scene in the police station when James Dean is talking to the sheriff about his dad and how his dad thinks he's a loser. And he's standing there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's around the water cooler. And notice how he's touching the water cooler, how he embraces the water cooler. It's his metaphorical father. He's expressing his emotion there. Now, actors use props all sorts of different ways. I know that when I played a queen one time, I couldn't think of, I had to wear a long skirt, but I wanted to make sure that I felt queenly, and that meant heels. They didn't wear high heels back then, but I made sure I had high heels on you couldn't see. Because that helped me, and I practiced with that. I think in the show I did not wear heels. I wore some heels, but not the real high heels I was practicing as. But that helped me get the feeling of her, you see? All right, so right now, until this becomes second nature. I'm going to assure you that creating the life you want does become second nature. It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes who you are. You don't have to give a lot of effort to it. As a matter of fact, you will find all sorts of beneficence flows into you, and you're going, wow, I wanted that, but I didn't even know I wanted that. You know, I had not consciously said a thing about it. I'm thrilled. So I want you to know it becomes easier and easier and easier, but now you got to apply the effort and you've got to do the work on yourself. Both of those things go together. Everything that I'm saying here goes with doing work on yourself. And anybody who doesn't tell you that's trying to sell something to you, a bill of goods, all right? Guys, let's be realistic about doing this and doing it well. While there's that magic formula, and it is just magic, you've got a million issues. This is one of the things I want to say is, of course you can generate a parking place right in front of the mall. You don't care about that. But you care about what you want in your life. Good morning! How are you, Cousin Randy? I love ya. I'm so glad you're with me this morning. Guys, I am so thrilled with my cousins that don't know what to do, particularly this one that just said hello. Okay, so what I am saying to you, kids, is that you simply must be realistic about creating the life you want. It is a process, an evolvement. It gets easier and easier and easier, and you go as you go to it. But you got to clear yourself out of the way. I'm going to explain that in more detail today. Okay, now last week, just to catch you up, I recommended everybody carries $100 in their pocket, in their wallets, okay? In their wallet or in their pocketbook. Get $100 when you have it and put it in there and carry it around with you. Do not spend it. Spend it in the next several months when that becomes a piece of cake, and then put another $100 in. All right? But what this does is it psychologically gives you a boost. You're not poor. You have $100. There is something to that affects you psychologically. Okay. I also recommended doing a log. Now, this is something that most people who are afraid of money don't want to do. But it's fascinating because we spend money unconsciously. Some people eat unconsciously. You know, you put a bowl of chips in front of them and then they just do this and they don't even think about what they're doing. They're watching television or whatever we do. I know I'm kind of one of those people. But anyway, don't spend money that way. So this log is about carrying a little notebook and writing down everything you spend money on, even a 25-cent pack of gum. Everything. Every single thing goes on that log. The interesting thing is you don't ever have any money issues. You know what you have? You have energy issues, and you've got to know where your energy goes. Oh, hey, good morning, Pat. Pat says, nice flashback to our learning levels approach, physical, mental, and emotional. He's referring to my learning communication sequence. How sweet of you to remember that. And he says, to paraphrase Bob Hope, thanks for the cellular memories. Oh, bless your heart. That's hilarious. Well, cheers to you and stay well. Love you very much, Pat. Pat's been an old friend of mine a long time. All right. So you must know where your money goes. The reason I said that is you don't have money issues. No, not really. You have energy issues. That's what's resulting in the lack of money. So don't ever say you have money issues. You have lack of money issues, okay. But what you really have, it's not even about money because money is just energy. You have energy issues. Energy is going hither and yon, and you don't even know where it goes half the time, and we've got to find that out. So one of the best ways to do this is to keep a log of what you're spending your money on. Every single cent goes on that log. You only have to do this for 2 or 3 weeks. It's absolutely fascinating. There are things that are changes in you that are going to occur. All of a sudden, you're going to say, you're going to see that as energy. Do I want to have my energy go out and be spent on that? Because that is part of the beach house that I'm manifesting. No, I don't think I'm going to spend my money on that. You see, it's a very powerful psychological system. So by all means, carry $100. Keep that log of where you are spending your money. Nobody sees it, just you. And the changes that it creates are yours. Wow. Powerful stuff. All right. Now, what I did promise you is there is another exercise that's quite powerful. It takes a little more time and energy. You'll enjoy it, though, I promise. And this is another great prop until you don't need it anymore. So let's talk about this. This is the true exercise for creating the life you want, creating what you want. And it is divided into 3 parts. I would suggest, my dears, that you have a pen and paper or sit in front of your computer and write some of this down. And you're certainly welcome, as people are doing on Facebook Live. And you certainly can call me in on Blog Talk Radio. By the way, my guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. You can certainly say, slow down, and say that again. My classes are constantly saying that to me. Slow down. So you may say it too. Slow down. Okay. The exercise for creating the life you want is divided into 3 parts. We're going to talk about each of these parts, but for right now, write the 3 parts down. Number 1 is the dedication. Number 2 is the generalization. And number 3 is the specification. Now, if you want to know more about this, and I'm going to be quoting from this book, everything here is in this book, The Life You Want. I wrote this book in 3 parts, not the same 3 parts I just told you about, but in 3 parts. The first part is about who God is, or what God is, what exactly is this all about, and what consciousness is, and how it all fits together. Very powerful first few chapters. The middle section is all about manifestation and doing exactly what I'm telling you about now in even more detail. And the third part of the book is about spiritual surrender. I very specifically put it in that order. And the reason is you can start manifesting before you spiritually surrender. Of course you can. It's just a working of energy. It just becomes easier when you spiritually surrender. So it's all about those 3 things in detail. Now, you'll find this exercise in The Life You Want. I'll read a couple of examples for you out of that so you can, I don't care if you get the feel of the book, but I want to give you a real good example of what it sounds like when you do this correctly. You see, they're prayers, guys. And they're prayers. They're prayers that really work. And they're prayers that are generated right out of the ego child's mind. And the ego child's mind has its base in, what's the word? Lack. So you're praying for lack. The highest self prays in the fullness of God, knowing full well about the fullness of God. And that's what you get back to. So it's very important to train yourself to pray well. Nobody ever tells us that. God hears all prayers we hear, and God does hear all prayers because God is all prayers. God is the light in the dark. God is the ego child's mind. God is the highest self mind. God is the lack. God is the abundance. God is everything. That's what confuses us about God. We learned as a kid, you see, that it felt like God was with us in the good times and certainly not there in the bad times. That God didn't love us if we did something bad. How could God? Because He's so perfect and we are not. And notice the He. But suppose I tell you that God is energy and God is everything. And our spiritual path in God, because that's all we are, is going from the mentality of lack and absence of God to an absolute knowledge of the fullness and beneficence and love of God. and that this is our quest. Isn't it our holy grail? This is our journey. How exciting. All doable. Many people have made that trip. And I'm so glad that you're listening too. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love those little hearts and little hands that go by. So let's talk about this exercise. Let's get right to it. Let's talk about the dedication. So you're going to do this only one time. And I say very strongly, you must get a notebook that is dedicated only to this. And the reason I say that is you yourself have got to give this some importance so you yourself can hear it. This is important. One of the ways is not to cram all this that I'm going to give you into a notebook with 50 other thousand things in your shopping list. Not a good idea. You want to be able to have a dedicated book. Okay? Within that dedicated book, on the first page, you write a dedication. The dedication is must be written from the energy of fullness, and it is written only one time, although you may read it many times and remind yourself of the intention of this. In my book, I gave you an example of a dedication. Now, I want you to hear this because this is coming from the fullness of God, not the absence. Okay? This book is dedicated to the fullness of God that resides in me, and I now claim that I am one with myself and all of life. I surrender all illusions and separateness and fear. I surrender the egoic child's mind, knowing that there's far more to me than this. I say instead that I am love. I am full of creativity, talent, and infinite potential. By the way, all the beneficence of God. I say that God is chaos, order, flow, and change. I surrender all resistance and accept the dynamism of my life because I know that my consciousness is always and forever leading me to what I love. I am the open system, the channel for the ascended God, and I am in deep peace and harmony with myself. It's a general dedication, right? It's written to say God is everything and I am too. And now I dedicate myself from going from lack to fullness. I am in fullness as I write this, and God come through. Really, that's about what it says, okay? Now, the next part of this is the generalization. Let's talk about the generalization. The generalization is a general description of what you wish to create. It's a warm-up to the real show, which is specification, okay? So let's give you an example of a generalization, all right? I open myself now, and you're going to do this every day, by the way. This goes in your book every day, some sort of generalization. I open myself now to having a lovely new house in a quiet neighborhood. I know it's a big house, at least 4 bedrooms, one of which I use as an office. It's a healthy house, too, and a warm, inviting one in which my visitors and I feel loved. It has a fireplace and a large room for all my workout equipment. It's a unique, creative, and innovative space. It's creative, innovative, and unique as I am. And we are a perfect match. Okay, so that's the generalization. Say what you want. Now, in this example I wrote about a house, I want to tell you my own experience about a house. Can I tell you that right, Bess? I caught myself when I bought 2 houses ago, dividing my energy. It was, God bring me a Cape Cod, God bring me a Williamsburg, God bring me modern, God bring me this, God bring me that. I don't care. I thought I was manifesting well, right? And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm dividing my energy, because what I need to say is, I am the magnet here. I am in complete compatibility with the perfect house for me, whatever that is. God knows. I do not. I surrender that. Don't divide your energies. You be aware if you're doing that, because that is one of the ways we pull ourselves down and we don't manifest well. Okay? Before we go on to the specification, I'll tell you another quick story. This was really funny. So, I had a dear real estate person that took me out almost every day of the week to see houses that we pulled off the internet, right? And he was dear, a kind of a fundamental Christian, and lived by certain ideas and principles. And one night, I had and felt very obligated to say what the market was like and what it wasn't, and when I was being, what do I want to say, fanciful to him, and when I was not. One night I had a dream. I had a dream that whatever the house was that I was going to buy, I would get for $150,000 less than the asking price. So the next morning I get in the car and I tell him that, and he says, "Oh, Martha, for God's sake, no, that's not going to happen. That's ridiculous that you think that's happening. That nobody's going to do that. You know, I'm all due respect to your dream. Ain't going to happen." I heard that so much that I came home, and you know the music that you hear to open the show? It's called All There Is. And I wrote that song when I got home because I needed to have a tune in my mind and lyrics that reminded me that I was in the energy of the all there is. So I could have anything I wanted. And so I wrote that song and some lovely lyrics, I think, for that. I should post them sometime. I will try to remember to do that. So life went on. One morning, I pulled, it was close to this time too, I pulled some things off the internet, and so did he. We got in the car like we always did. We went through our big stacks of things. We set off. First of all, no, I'm telling you the wrong thing. One day we went, and the first house we saw was perfectly lovely. It was a beautiful house. I wanted it. It had a wonderful garden. It was great. I turned to my real estate agent. I said, "Will they take $150,000 less than the asking price?" He said, "Martha, ridiculous. No." And so I closed my heart to it. That was it. So I walked out of the house, got in the car. We saw houses the rest of the day. Next day, the very next day, we got in the car with a stack of papers again, and we pulled 3 or 4 of them to go and see that day. We set out. We could not find one of them. We got lost. We were turned around. We couldn't find anything. We didn't see one house. The phone rang in his car, and it was his wife, who was also a real estate agent. I'm sure she was a bit tired of me confiscating her husband every single day for 3 solid months, right? And one of the things I haven't told you, that I sold my old house to a developer, so I had 1 week to find something now. 1 week before the bulldozers came. Okay? Try not to think about that part and to stay, what? In the perfection of all there is. So, she called on the car phone. "Martha, did you like that house you saw yesterday morning?" I said, "Absolutely. Will they take $150,000 less?" And he had apparently told his wife, you know, my fantasy. And she said, "Well, I called them and asked, and they said yes." So we turned the car around, and we went back and drew up a contract. And that's how I got my house. Now, everything that I'm telling you is how to do it. Okay? I'm not leaving anything out. You listen and study these 3 shows, 4 shows maybe, because I think we'll probably go on from here. But I am telling you, if it's not happening for you, you are in the way. We got to find out why. I'm going to give you some general reasons why, but then it's up to you to decide to work on yourself. All of us are here to help. Okay, let's talk about the specification now. The specification is where you add the sensory and emotional experiences, because you must convince your cells. Thank you, Pat, for saying the cellular memories. Thanks for the cellular memories. You have to convince the cells of your body, which are the stronghold for your experiences. These things are true when they reach the cellular level, right? Because the cells tell you this is true. When you have a sensory and emotional experience there. For years, I did an acting exercise, and I'd always choose somebody in the class who I didn't think was going to do this well. And I'd choose somebody and ask them to tell me one truth and two lies, but to absolutely tell the whole class, and we would tell them which one the lie was. And every time the class could always pick out the lie because it had no sensory experiences to it. And then I'd have one of my advanced students get up there and I'd say, tell me one lie, two lies. Let's see, what was it? It was two lies and one truth. Two lies and one truth, that was it. Tell two lies and one truth. And we'll try to tell you which one the truth is. And my advanced students did this so well, they added the sensory experience to the lies, and you can tell the difference. So the sensory and emotional experiences are what makes things real, not only to our listeners, to us. Wow. Okay. You have to convince yourselves that these things are already happening, even if you don't have any physical proof of it. Okay. So the specification might sound like this. Well, let me find it. Here it is. The first morning after I get settled into my new house, I wake up to the daylight pouring through the French doors of my bedroom. And I am so grateful. I bound out of bed, ready to open the last of the boxes. My barbells are heavy. Now that my gym is complete, I pad back to my room and shower in my spacious shower stall, and afterwards I slide into my thick terry cloth robe. I then go to the little refrigerator down the hall. I knew one day this little college refrigerator would come in handy. It is now my upstairs refrigerator. How wonderfully indulgent. I get the bottle of sparkling apple juice I have put there for just this occasion. The bottle is good and cold and freezes my hand so much so that I have to change the bottle to the other one. And when I open it, it makes a hissing sound, and I immediately smell the apples as though I picked them from an orchard. I pour the juice into a champagne glass to toast my new home. A champagne glass I put out the night before. I pour the juice into the champagne glass. I go out on the balcony off my bedroom. It overlooks my garden, and I have plans for that garden. I quietly raise my glass to a beautiful blazing red cardinal that's just landed on a branch in front of me. I feel so grateful. That's the sensory experience. That's the specification. Okay? Now, there are ways to make this exercise work for you, and there are ways not to have this exercise work at all. So let's talk about how it's going to work for you. All right? Use only phrases like this. In fact, use only these phrases. I affirm, I claim, I know, I declare, and I celebrate. Stay away from using the phrase, I intend. Why? Because it implies future time, and you don't want to program yourself for future time. You want it now. When does that time ever get here? That future time? It doesn't. That's the whole point. You have to experience it now. So all of those words I just gave you are about now. Now. Number 2, don't ever write, I hope, because it also implies future time and uncertainty as to whether consciousness will deign to grant your request. Darling, God is all you are. You are creating something from your God source. That you are in the way, and most people are, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not there for you to use. This is how to do it. There's no hope and there's no conditionals here in any way. Avoid the phrase, I want, because this keeps you in the desire-based part of the creation formula when you really want to strengthen and grow in the absolute knowingness part of it. So using a phrase like I want is not going to get you anywhere. Always, always, and forever use the present tense. All right, now keep what you say very positive and write about what you want, not what you don't want. Compose, for example, my new partner loves me for who I am, rather than I don't want another bozo who doesn't love me for who I am. That's always gets a good laugh. Okay? Keep it positive. My new partner loves me for who I am. That's it. That's enough. Forget the past. It hasn't happened. And it certainly has no bearing on right now. The next point. Come from abundance, not from lack. Write, I celebrate money flowing to me now, rather than I need money and I need it badly. It'll be hard to make, but I'm going to do the best I can to make it. Can you hear the difference between the highest self mind and the ego child's mind? It's pretty important for you to hear the difference. And you better go over and over what you have written, because I'm going to tell you that ego child's mind without work is going to try to sneak in there. And even with work, at one point, it's going to try to sneak in there. All right, I've got to take a sip of iced tea. Which leads me to my next point, not the tea, but what I just said. Stay aware. What better way for the ego child's mind to sabotage this whole process than to have you be unconscious to what you really believe? Search for deeper truths beyond what you think you currently know. Feel the agreement or disagreement between the conscious and subconscious minds. We're going to make that even more pronounced as we go through and talk to you about it. Give the agreement and disagreement language so that you may fully acknowledge what you're doing and work on releasing what's in the way. Be emotionally honest with yourself. We're going to talk about that too. In specification specifically, be sure to add details that have to do with a specific moment in time, such as waking up on the first morning after you're settled into your new home. I have a client that I just adore. She's one of my healers. She's been in my class for a long time, but she struggles with details. One of the reasons she struggles with details is that she doesn't want to look at anything that's specific because she'd have to change. So why give some of her issues specific words? She'd rather just create an umbrella to stand under. And that doesn't get you anywhere. She's changing that now, of course. In specification, the emotional response, how you feel about everything that's happening, is of utmost importance. You can't just say the flowers are blooming outside. How do you feel about the flowers? What color are they? What do they smell like? If they have a smell, are there bees around those flowers? Ants around those flowers? What's the mulch look like? What does it feel like under your feet? What kind of shoes are you wearing? Are you going to pick the flower? Are you going to leave it where it is? What plans do you have for the whole garden? How does that particular colored flower fit into the whole? Now you get the specification right. And how does that make you feel? And don't forget the sensory experience. You've got to know what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And what the experience is. All right. So that so far is the exercise. I think that's a real important exercise. Please observe that criteria. And I want to take you someplace that I think we need to go. This isn't always the most exciting place to go, but it's probably one of the most powerful places I can take you. I'm going to, yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure. All right, so let's go to what you're doing when it doesn't work. I think I told you last week about a man I heard on the radio. I could tell I liked him, but I felt very bad for him at the same time, because this simple remark told me a lot. He owned a bookstore, and I think The Secret had just come out, and let me tell you, it must have been a slow news day, right? Because somebody on the radio had interviewed him. He had a bookstore in Decatur, I believe, and he said, I'm not going to carry that book. It's just bull. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put that over on the public. And all I could think of was this poor, disappointed man. There is something that psychology calls depressive realism. I actually don't think realism is a good title, but because I think the color that they paint realism with is the fantasy, you know. But anyway, it made me feel very sad for him, because I'm going to tell you right now, and I am not inclined to say anything to you that is a lie that I know about. I really mean that. And I know about this because I use it all the time. This works. But you darn better listen to me about getting yourself out of the way. It works every time. And how fast it works has to do with how well integrated consciousness is in your being, how much you are living in that space. Because when you negative think or you do any of the cognitive distortions that we have spent weeks talking about a year ago, right? They're all on the radio. Let me tell you, you're just bring the whole system right down. Now, I want you to know that whether you have the life that you want now or not, creation works. Because if most of your energy, as we learned about last week, I believe, and the week before, is in the lack of something, and you get that's how you communicate with the universe, and you're getting more lack. And if it's in the fullness, and you see that everywhere you go, that's how you get more fullness. The rich really do get richer. The poor really do get poorer. It has to do with the mindset. It has to do with what you're seizing in terms of ideas, or none. It has to do with what action you're taking, or none. This is a mentality, guys. This is more than that. this is what mind are you using? The ego child's mind, the part of you still thinks like a child, and you remember that children don't make money. They don't have everything you want. And the highest self mind, which believes and works in and gives thanks to all there is for everything. Okay, let's talk about when creating the life you want doesn't work. This is a place where persistence does not work. I despise old idioms and old phrases that sound good on the surface, but should be looked at relative to the current situation, what's happening in your life now. For example, if at first you don't succeed, try again, is bull when it comes to this. If what you're doing isn't working and you've seen a pattern of it not working in your life, you can try it until the cows come home. I'll hold your coat. Nothing's going to happen. You have got to fix what's broken. If your car has a flat tire, you change it. If you look in the mirror and your hair looks like mine today, you fix it. And yet, if we point out an issue to you, you hide it. Most people do. Or you would rather not avoid it, or you tell yourself you'll deal with it another day. Well, today's the day. Today's the day. The only mind that's going to try to hide it and avoid looking at it and complain about having to do it is the ego child's mind. Do you realize that? That's it. It's not the highest self. So listen to the highest self on this one. Truly. The most important part to this whole process is where you and I are right now. Discovering what is not working in your effort to make this work. Creating more is a completely natural process. Creating more of anything. For God's sake, I'm sitting in the woods right now, by the way, and as I look out and around, if we did not take care of these weeds, limb up these trees, you couldn't even walk through the forest. Nature is that abundant. Why isn't that a good metaphor for you? Money really does grow on trees when you look at it as a metaphor. Get out of the way if you're having trouble. So we got to talk about what's in the way. You understand? So instead of saying, oh, Martha's about to tell us all the negative things that we're doing, oh, why not say, oh my God, I'm getting the answers for what's going to really fix this if I take these and work on them. Good. You see, creating is a natural process. Abundance is a natural offshoot. And if it isn't working, you can darn well be sure that you are somehow, your ego child's mind is somehow in the way. Your psyche is actually made of movable parts. And continuing to look at and challenge what you don't need anymore, or what is actually in the way, or what is old and not needed anymore, archaic in your life, makes for a more reliable, adaptable, and creative system. And that's how you make money. And that's how you live well. So let's talk about these things and look at them in terms of hindrances. Let's call them hindrances. Here are some common hindrances, and there are quite a lot of them. We're probably going to have to go into next week to talk about these, but here's the first one. Remaining in the survival mode. Enduring instead of living is another way we can put that. You see, the number one important thing as a child is to remain alive. Do you realize that all of your issues were adaptations because you needed to stay alive? Your world needed to make sense for you to stay alive. What happens is that people don't realize that they are alive, and now it needs changing and when they reach a certain level in their adulthood. And the most important thing, the emphasis then becomes opening consciousness, becoming more loving, creating the life I want, showing other people how to do it, living a life that God intended, which is called potential. The survival mode makes its presence known in our adulthood in a variety of ways. Oh, the ways are infinite, I'm going to tell you now, but here's some examples. Fear that you can't take care of yourself or anybody else. Anxiety that you wait for the next shoe to fall, even in the good times. Fear that your money is drying up and that more will not come in. Fear that you're the victim of other people, the economy, or whoever the president is. It's all victim mentality, guys. Fear that you have to suffer. Fear that you will be in pain. Fear that you won't sell your house. Fear of change. Fear of something being unfair to you. Fear that there isn't a God. Keep going. But I'm going to tell you now, and this is shocking, they're all excuses. Everything's an excuse that I said and more. All excuses. Nothing can stop you but your own mind. And which mind am I talking about? The egoic child's mind. This is why it's critical, really critical, to work on yourself. By getting your old beliefs out of the way. By challenging them and moving past them. By seeing more, by seeing the larger picture. Because I'm going to tell you right now that when you are in the ego child's mind, you narrow down to the problem. There was a marvelous book called The Heart Math Solution. They talk about narrowing down to the issue. I did an exercise with, well, I often do it. In my other office, I have a giraffe. And I'll ask people, I'll say, now really concentrate on the giraffe. I want you to so concentrate on the giraffe that nothing else in the room is there. You don't see me, you'll hear my voice, but you don't see anything but the giraffe. Focus on the giraffe, nothing else exists. And they do. And then I'll say, and now I want you to take in everything in the room, including the giraffe. I want you to look at everything. I want you to see things you've never seen before. And they do. And that's a very good example of what I'm talking about here. When you have an issue, when you have a problem, you'll narrow down and everything becomes that. And you miss all the creative solutions and energies and ideas, by the way, that'll get you out of the fix around you. You see? We simply have to challenge those beliefs that are in the way. We have to. Or you can continue to live with them. But if you do, you're just blooming not going to get what you want the way you want it, and with the ease and effortlessness that you know is there. Number 2 hindrance is really believing in lack, investing in lack, identifying with lack and people who are lacking. This is a self-defeating mindset, and it is a big flashing red sign that you are in the egoic child's mind. which has lack at its base, right? Many of you have heard this that listen to me for a long time. Let me remind all of you, and for you new folks, that God presents two ways. Here's the rub: according to our understanding. That's the rub: according to our understanding, which mind we're in. God appears to the egoic child's mind as the absence of itself, the lack. This is a fear-based consciousness. God also appears, according to what you believe, as the fullness of itself, as abundance, as the love-based energy full of beneficence, where the creative ideas are that you can make money from. You have these two minds. Your spiritual journey, your journey, is to go from the fear-based self to the love-based self, from the absence of God to the fullness of God. Now, people who often believe in lack get hung up on the word how. How? How is it coming to me? I want this. I'm with you on the formula. But they get to unknowingness. They got the desire. They get to knowingness and they go, how is God going to bring this to me? How is this going to happen? I don't understand how it's going to happen. It's like you've walked into an operating room and you take the scalpel out of the surgeon's hand and you go, now, how am I going to operate on this guy's brain? You don't have that knowledge. You're not supposed to do that. Get the hell out of there. Not your domain. Your job is twofold. Number one, to get yourself out of the way, to look at your issues, to break your patterns, to work with somebody, to expand the mind. And number two, to want, to desire. How many times when you want and desire do you say, oh, I've got to budget, and you narrow yourself down? Now look, I believe being smart with the money. I do. But instead of narrowing myself down and limiting myself and saying I've got a budget, I try to open myself to more creative ideas and ways of making money and getting out there and doing it. Come on, guys. Life is not supposed to shrink. At any point, it's supposed to expand. That means the brain has got to go with. You've got to get over the limited thinking. You understand? You've got to get over the fact that you've got to narrow and make your life smaller and limit yourself so that you can have what you want. That's just bloomin' not true. Hi, Jerry. Unless you make it true, of course. What is true is that you've got another option, and that is to be more creative, to put your wisdom to contribution, to see what you can add value to use your talents, gifts, and abilities. They're there to be used and for you to make money with. They've been in you all along that you've developed or not developed. Is it too late now? It is not. Get to work. Your job is to get yourself out of the way and hold desire and knowingness that lives in expectancy. That's your job, not the how. That's it, nothing else. The rest is God working through the laws of the universe that we talked about last week. Shall I remind you of those? The law of chaos to order, the law of cause and effect, the law of thought to substance, the law of attraction, the law of least resistance, and the law of fair exchange. Things are going to come to you, by the way, in the least resistant way. I got real tickled. So this was happened a number of years ago. I lost my phone, and I got a phone call several days later from a friend of mine in New York City, and he said, "Hi, Martha, did you lose your phone?" What? I hadn't heard from this guy in a really long time, and he's calling me about my lost phone that I lost 2 or 3 days ago and haven't been able to find. Apparently, I'd left it in a store. The store looked in my contacts, called him in New York, and he called me. Things happen quite, and by the way, it was really fun to be back in touch. If things are not happening for you, my loves, you're in the way. Let's get yourself out of the way. I would love it in my life for you to eventually say to me, as some people have, wow, it's just shamelessly easy to create that. Wouldn't that be nice? One of the big issues about our abundance or lack mentality is what we actually think about God. I think that in our journey to all this, it's really important for us to start asking questions. You know, we heard, for example, as children, that God fixes everything. Many of us were indoctrinated with this, and God became, in our kids' minds, a kind of Santa Claus. Sounded good, and we bought it because we have no real power as children to deal with anything. We're coping the best way we could. God could fix everything, and yet we saw that our fathers still drank, and our mothers still criticized, and our older brothers still tortured us. Where was God, the one that was supposed to save you then? So, we are unresolved about God sometimes. We suppress our issues about it, though, because, whoo, people don't like to hear that. It's not exactly a cocktail party talk, is it? We think differently. We challenge our own beliefs, and that's disturbing to other people who don't want to challenge theirs. Do you understand that? Okay. Our questions become then something that we hide and are ashamed of, and instead of something to be worked through to answers and solutions. I think that's the power of consciousness work. I think a lot of people, I'll tell you a quick story. So one of my dear friends was, and I've lost touch with her now, and if you're listening to the show, please contact me, but she was a soap opera star, and she became a writer, wrote adorable books. And when I knew her, after the soap opera ended that I helped coach, and before her writing career really took off, she was with me. She wasn't from here, but she was with me, and we were driving around the car. I even remember the intersection where this happened. And I said something about God and energy and everything that I was doing, and wow, the tsunami came. Don't you talk to me about God. I don't believe any of that crap. Oh, I just, don't give me that. If we're going to be friends, don't go there. So great. But she was fascinated in my work, and I was doing a lot of corporate work, and I always went into corporations, talked about the energy and how to reach peak performance through energy and all the energy ramifications. If you want to know about them, they're on the DVD I've put out called the IT series about, how to be your potential energetically. and all the beneficence that comes from that. I don't know how many years later, 15, 20 years later, I got a call out of the blue, and it was this woman. And I was so glad to hear from her. And I said, "Oh dear, how have you been? Tell me everything." And she said, "Well, the biggest thing I have to tell you is that I found God." Well, you could have bowled me over. "You have?" I said. "No kidding. How did all that happen?" She said, "Well, Martha, God was the energy, but you were nice not to tell me. And I found it out for myself." So, there we are. God's everything. I don't care whether you use the word or not. People are so silly about words, aren't they? You know, I think I told you the story of Flannery O'Connor, and I'll tell it to you in a little different way this time. A lot of times when I was coaching actors, I'd have someone in there who was a strong whatever they were, and they didn't want to say some of the four-letter words that were written in their scripts, right? And I would remind them of something Flannery O'Connor said when she was a writer, a marvelous writer, but she wrote all these grotesque stories. And a reporter asked her, because she was very, very strong Catholic, how she resolved those two things, how she could write about these really despicable people and still be so spiritual. And she said, "Well, sometimes you show the grace of God by showing the lack of it." And I would tell them that, and they would go, "Oh," and we're able to say the words after that. Everything is God. What's your intention behind what you're saying, darlings? Is it from the ego child's mind, from lack, from cruelty, from unkindness, from discomfort, or is it from the fullness of God? It's how you say the words. It's what you do with them. It's not the words themselves. Words are nothing without you. God needs you to work through. You're part of the formula, you see? The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. Who do you think the Son is? If you think it's only Jesus, you're missing a great opportunity, because Jesus has held that place for you. You, the Father, being the parent, in you, the truth teller, the highest self, the Holy Ghost being everything out here who is part of the oneness of life, the trees, the pebbles, the neighbors next door, the dog at my feet, all God, the Holy Ghost, the Spirit of God all around me. But you stand in the middle, so do I, in that place, the Son. That's how it all works, you see, this marvelous triad. Okay. We must ask questions about God at some point in our lives. We must find out who God is. We must find out, more importantly, what God is, because you are the who God is, and God is the what God is. God is energy, but it's the energy of all you are, unless you're in the way. That's God too. We have to look carefully and see what we actually believe about God, because it colors everything you believe, you do, you say, you feel. Everything. I want to put on the table that you are your only investment and you are your only resource. At one point, you have to wake up to that. You have to stop and think a minute and realize it. At one point, chasing the dream out there somewhere becomes worthless. You're developing your outside investments and resources instead of the ones that will really count and the ones that keep the returns, by the way, flowing. This is consciousness work, by the way. I think it's extremely important, guys. Let me put on the table, too, that of course, the Life You Want book has a lot about what God is and who you are relative to that. And I think I did a consciousness show. The first shows I ever did on Blog Talk Radio, they're on Blog Talk Radio, not Facebook Live, are on this subject. You might want to give those a listen or get this book and find out who God really is beyond what you've been told. I was reared a Presbyterian. I sang in the Baptist choir. I went to an Episcopal school. I enjoy all religions. I married a Catholic man. I enjoy all religions, but I don't believe all of them. You see, religion is a dogma. You go there to believe a certain thing. I've always been the kind of person that says, well, I believe that, I don't believe that, I believe that, I don't believe that. What does that really mean? And I sit there and question it all. But believe you me, I know what I believe from the inside out. And I hope you do too. Hindrance number 3. Using affirmations unwisely. Does that surprise you? I think people who like fantasy really love those affirmations. And I want to change your mind about this, because I think some affirmations are wonderful and some of them you should give up. For an affirmation to work, your conscious and subconscious minds must be in complete agreement. It isn't good enough to say an affirmation over and over and over and over and over and over and over again ad nauseum, hoping that one day you will believe it. You've got to remove what makes you not believe it. Hence back to the work you do on yourself. If you say, I'm getting a new car, and it's in the future, you've gotten what you wish for, a car that's always in the future. And even if you do affirm correctly, I have a new car, but you're caught up in the hows. How is it going to come to me? I don't have the money for what I want. Where is this coming from? You just simply are doing somebody else's business. Your subconscious mind is saying, not so fast, Waddy. You know, Waddy was an old sobriquet of my mother's. Her nickname for me, Waddy. W-H-A-T-I-E. I always think that's so funny. Waddy. Anyway, your subconscious mind is saying, not so fast. Because you're busy going, how am I going to get this? God will tell you what you're supposed to do when the time comes for you to do it. If there's nothing for you to do, keep the desire. Absolutely no. Absolutely expect. Keep in mind, you cannot create anything, that new car or anything else, out of fear. Out of the ego child's mind, you can't do it. Years ago, I was looking through, one of my friends owns a bookstore, metaphysical bookstore, and I was over there nosing around. And I was looking at their affirmation things, and I always like to read what is being affirmed, right? Don't you be giving me something that I don't know what you're saying to me. And something struck me, and I thought this was just a great example. I always use it times like this. It said, I have plenty of energy to accomplish the task at hand. And now these were subliminal tapes, right? They just would give you that underneath whatever they had on top, music or whatever. I have plenty of energy to accomplish the task at hand. Do you know that we are filled with little viruses and little reactions to food and a snoot of pesticide or mold from time to time, and God knows what, and we don't feel good that day. And if you hear this, guess what your body is saying? Because it heard it. Oh, no, you don't. And you're getting the opposite. Affirmations like this are not good for you. They simply aren't. So what is good for you? Really ascended affirmations, I'll buy. You can't argue with ascended affirmations. And by the way, this is one of the reasons that I gathered a lot of the quotes that come from these radio shows, from my books, from the columns that I write for magazines, from, lectures, classes, everything I teach. And I assembled some quotes. In fact, I'm assembling the second book of them, that are very ascended. There's nothing you can argue with. All ascended truth confirms itself. We see this over and over again in my classes. The people that I work with, oh my God, ascended truth. I heard that here, I heard that here. All ascended truth confirms itself. These, the value of ascended affirmation is that it sets the bar high, so that you see issues that come up that are incompatible with your ascended energies. You see them now all of a sudden crystal clearly. The objections to these larger truths are the real problems in our lives, and you call them issues. All of our life, and I'm telling you this, the truth becomes easier when we're not laboring under them. I think they're enormously important. As a matter of fact, they're the undeveloped energy that is going to translate into a powerful higher self. But they cannot remain what they are and do that. All their energies, issues are made from energy, come rushing back to the present moment when they're released, where you can create whatever you want. You have the energy to do it. You're like a laser beam at that point. That's the energy you need right there. I'm looking at our time. I have 7 minutes left to go. Can I get through this next one? Let's see how long it is. Maybe. Hindrance number 4. Over-identifying with the child you were instead of the adult you are. Repeating these old patterns guarantees a failed outcome, because the same